Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first lecture of Introduction to Programming. Uh, as a first thing, these lectures are recorded, and the recordings are set on the website. I'm going to show it later. Anyway, if you want to ask something, you can use the chat window. The chat window is not included in the recording, so nobody sees what you're asking. If you're using the microphone, then your voice is included in the recording. I mean, you can do that as well, but preferably use the chat window and then uh, I try to answer those as quickly as possible. So anyway, today this lecture is going to consist of a course introduction. I'm going to tell you how you can complete this course, uh, what kind of requirements there are, what are we going to do, what is the schedule, and all those important things. And as I already mentioned, please ask whenever you have something you want to know more about. Uh, if we start with the basic outline, you get 5 credits for completing this course. This is the advanced course that continues right after this one. You also get 5 credits from that one. Uh, and you can sort of think these two as a single 10 credit course. I mean, you can take the introduction only if you want to, uh, but I sort of recommend taking them both. Uh, course lasts for 7 weeks, and then we have an exam after that one. So we start today, and then we have one of these lectures each week on Thursdays at the same time on Zoom, and then the recordings are said. Uh, and then there are these workshops, these live workshops, which you can participate. I'm going to talk about those later as well today. But the focus on this course is really much on your independent work. And one basic thing, something I'm probably going to mention several times today, is that programming is a skill which requires a lot of practice. And there's this saying that you learn to program by programming, or you learn to program by writing programs, which is pretty much true. So you need to practice it a lot. But I'm going to talk about details later as well. Anyway, my name is Erkki Kaila. I'm a university lecturer at the University of Helsinki. Uh, and we also have Timo, who is the assistant teacher in this course. He's responsible for exams and for junior instructions and for your guidance and things like that. You will probably meet him at some point. Um, and then we have a bunch of senior and junior instructors helping you with your possible problems with the programming. So we have a couple of help channels made to help you get started in your programming career, and to help you whenever you encounter any problems with the exercises or anything. If you want to contact me, and it's probable that at some point you need to, uh, please use my email address, erkki.kaila@helsinki.fi. These slides, I'm going to share these slides, so you don't need to write this stuff down. Now my email address is on the course website, of course, as well. There's another website. This is like a more general website about programming courses. This Ohjelmoinnin MOOC, unfortunately in Finnish. The address. But you can send your messages in any or in Finnish and in English to that address as well. That address is probably the right one if you have anything about the MOOC materials. For example, if you encounter an error in one of the exercises or something like that. If you find any problems and you're familiar with Git, you can also do issues in there. Uh, if you don't know what it means, then no worries. We're going to talk about that later. Well, probably not in this course, but in some other courses. I have an office in the Exactum building in Kumpula. I'm not there that often. I'm primarily working in University of Turku, which means that I'm in a different town. But I'm there occasionally, and if you happen to be there, and if I'm in my office, please come by. I always have a minute or two to talk to you, at least. I also have a telephone number, but it's rarely switched on because, well, nobody really calls in any of these work-related matters, and I don't really call anyone. Uh, but I'd say use the email, or I'm also in the Discord, so you can try to reach me there as well. That's perfectly fine as well. I'm there most of the time. If I'm not giving a lecture or presentation or not in a meeting, then I'm probably online on Discord, so you can catch me there as well. I'm going to talk about Discord also a little bit later today. So what are we going to do? We're going to learn the basic programming concepts using Python as a programming language. And as I mentioned before, we're going to continue in advanced programming course in the second period, which basically starts where we leave or where we end this course after 7 weeks. But even after this first course, you should know enough about the basic programming concepts that you can write these simple programs to solve different kind of problems. And I'm actually going to show you an example of a problem that's easy to solve by programming, but difficult to solve by anything else. Uh, Before that, here are the contents of the course divided into 7 modules or 7 weeks. Uh, if you don't know what these things mean, it doesn't really matter. We're going to talk about this. We don't really expect any previous experience in programming. You don't need to know anything about programming when you start this course. We'll try to teach you anything from the scratch. If you have some previous knowledge, that's fine, but you don't need to have anything. But if you know something about these concepts, then you basically get the idea on how far we will go, and then we will continue in the advanced course on different topics. Now, if you have more than a little previous knowledge about programming, then there's an initial exam you can try to take. It's already tomorrow, and the idea is that if you already know programming and you haven't done a MOOC course and you haven't done any programming course in any other Finnish higher education institute, then you can pass this course by taking the initial exam. Meaning that if you pass this exam, you don't need to do the exercises and you don't need to do the final exam of this course. You get the grade based solely on this initial exam. Uh, but I would say that this is only for those of you who actually have previous programming experience. And and I mean, if you know what all these concepts mean, and if you can use all these concepts with Python, if you know how to write your own functions, and if you know lists and other data structures, and you know how to handle files and external libraries and so on, then please by all means take the initial exam. There's no point in spending your time if you already know the stuff. Uh, there are some very good questions. If someone completed every exercise, if you completed every exercise, just take the standard exam. That's easiest. The initial exam is it's a bit more difficult because it covers all the course in a single exam. Uh, and another question: if you pass the exam but are unhappy with the grade, can we still participate in this course to improve the grade? The thing about the initial exam is that I only let you pass if you get the highest grade, if you get grade 5. If you don't have enough knowledge to get the grade 5, then you don't pass. Because the idea is that I only let those people pass the initial exam who actually know the programming enough to start working on the advanced course or so on. And for that, I want to know that you actually do know the programming. But you can take the initial exam, and if you're not happy with the result, or if you don't pass it, then you can continue working on the course like just normally. There's no punishment in not passing the exam, except that you don't get the grade, but nothing like that. Uh, and now something really important. If you want to take this initial exam and it's already tomorrow at noon, please send me an email today, meaning that I need to have your email tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. If I don't have it, then you can't do this because I need some time to set up the system or set up the emails and for everyone. And I do have some other things tomorrow morning, unfortunately. The initial exam only includes the Python material from the introduction course. There's a separate initial exam for the advanced course when it starts. So if you know the stuff listed on the table earlier, or the table in here, then please take the initial exam. But if you don't know any programming, I'd say just it's just a waste of time. If you're unsure, then by all means, please take it. There's no problem in trying. I mean, if you take the exam, you get the questions, and then you decide that you don't know it, then you just don't return or submit them. That's perfectly fine. No harm done. But still, I'm just saying that if you're if you don't actually know how to program, then you probably shouldn't take it. Okay. Then what do we mean by programming? I mean, you're probably all familiar with the term, but what it actually means, it's like what this is like a formal definition. It's that we are writing programs using a programming language, and the person writing those programs is called a programmer. Uh, and why do we need to write programs? Now, you're all familiar, or you all heard a discussion about the current AI tools, and I'm thinking that almost all of you, or if not all of you, have used and are using the current AI tools. And we're talking about artificial intelligence and intelligent systems and things like that. But the computers, if we get down to it, are still quite stupid in a sense that the computers can perform simple operations, nothing too complex. But what they can do, they can perform those simple operations really quickly, meaning that the modern computers can perform like a billion simple operations in 1 second. And when we combine those simple operations, we can perform really complicated tasks and solve really complicated problems. And that's what we're doing in programming usually. We're writing these instructions one at a time, and then instructions are executed one at a time. And when we are doing stuff repeatedly, that's usually the thing in programming, that we're doing something over and over to accomplish a solution to a specific problem. Uh, there's also been some discussion on whether we need to learn programming because we have all these modern AI systems. I'm going to talk about that, actually going to talk a bit more about this later, but I can say now that we do still need programmers, even though we have AI systems that can write code at least in some level, but there's still need for experts in programming in various steps in software development. So programming is still an essential skill in IT and in other fields as well. So I'm going to show you an example, something I did myself. This is from a couple of years ago, but I think it's still a valid one. And the reason I want to show you this one, that it's a real life example in the sense that it was a real problem that I had, or actually one research group had. Uh, it's also the solution to this one is something you're going to learn during this course. So it's nothing. It's not overly complicated in a sense that the program reaching to solve this problem is something you should be able to write after completing this course. And so what was the problem is that there was learning analytics data from elementary school level. So basically there was a bunch of data and a lot of data containing calculations. And the idea of those was that there was like a calculation and then the answer, some of them were correct, some of them they were incorrect. Uh, and the research group had a bunch of questions or bunch of different problems where they needed the data. And the problems were like find all subtractions where the first number is less than 21 and the second has only one digit. So all of those calculations, they needed to find exactly the ones where the first number is less than 21 and the second one has only one digit. So something like 11 minus 6 or 19 minus 4, but something like 24 minus 7 needed to be filtered out because 24 is more than 21 or is not less than 21. And 19 minus 11, 11 has two digits instead of one. And during this kind of data for human would be perfectly fine if there were like, I don't know, 20 of these calculations, maybe 100, but there were actually several million of these calculations in total. And they needed to do the filtering and they asked me to help them in this one. And the data file looked something like this, although there were more columns in each line. But there's basically like a tag for what is the calculation, then the actual calculation. There's the answer somewhere. It's not included in this data, and then there's some data about who performed the calculation and when it was completed, and so on. And approximately 250,000 lines per file, and there were, I don't know, maybe 16 files if I remember correctly. So you get the point, a lot of data. And something that's sort of complicated to do with any other tool. I mean, you can do something like this with Excel, but it's not really great tool for this one. It doesn't really work with too long files, and writing the rules for filtering in Excel are actually quite complicated, and so on. There are some other tools you can maybe try to use for this one, but I'd say that writing a simple program for filtering was probably the easiest solution. It took me, I'd say, less than 30 minutes to actually write and test the program for all those 8 different kind of tasks. So this was like one of the examples of tasks. There were several others, like find all multiplications where something and something on, and so on. And then with the 5 million rows of data, it took less than a minute to do all the filtering for all those 8 different kind of tasks. And I say that this is a good example of a sort of the problem itself wasn't complicated, but what made this problem complicated was that there was so much data. There was way too much data for anyone to actually do this by hand or manually, or actually check all the lines one at a time and try to pick just the ones they needed. And writing a simple program for this one wasn't. It was a task you should, as I said before, it was a task you should be able to complete after completing this introduction course. So we're going to learn about reading files and writing files and filtering data and comparing strings and all that kind of things you need for this kind of problem. So now I'm not saying that going to you're not probably going to encounter this kind of specific problem, but I'm certain that at some point you will have some kind of tasks or problems that are easy to solve with programming. Uh, so, for example, when you're doing your thesis, maybe later you're handling some data, then it's really likely that you're going to benefit from being able to manipulate the data by using Python. It might be a lot easier than doing it with any or whatever kind of material or tasks or whatever you're doing. Uh, okay, so if we get down to basics, what is Python? I've been talking about Python. It's a translated programming language. And what the translated meaning at this point is that when we write a Python program, it's just text. And then that Python program can be executed by a Python translator. And good thing about this is that when we have that single Python program or whatever number of Python programs, we can translate them or we can execute them anywhere in any system, any operating system where we have the Python translator, meaning that the single Python program can be executed in Windows and in Mac and in Linux systems and in Android phones and iPhones and whatever systems where you have a Python translator. So instead of writing like a separate program for all of those systems, we can have the same Python programs executed in all those systems. Python is also free, so you can download it freely, and you actually need to download it and install it during this course. It can be used for various purposes. It's a great this sort of general programming language, but it's very popular in some specific contexts like artificial intelligence, machine learning, biotechnology, are just some examples. You can use Python for game programming. Not, I mean, to some extent. If you're talking about like this modern 3D computer games, then you probably need to use something else. But for you can use Python for graphical games, and it's actually something we're going to do at the end of advanced course. We're going to practice writing a simple graphical game by using Python. It's quite powerful. It's not the most powerful programming language. If we talk about raw speed, and things like that. But it's powerful enough for most things. The syntax is quite simple. It's easy to learn, and it's still got white words still. So I'd say that it's a great first programming language, but it's good enough to be used in professional level a lot later. And it's probably the most used programming language, or at least in top 3 in the whole world. Coming up with the exact list, it's a bit difficult because it's really difficult to measure how much the programming language are used, and the metrics are not that straightforward. I mean, but still Python is in top 3. It's like I think Python, Java, JavaScript, C are probably the top 4, or C++, top 4 programming languages in some order, and then usually Python is first or second in whatever listings you can find. So when you're learning Python, there's going to be plenty of applications for that one, and there's going to be plenty of resources online, and there are a lot of external libraries you can use to extend it to do almost anything you want to. So what do we actually do in this course? Now there are 2 components. There are these shared sessions for Thursdays, these sort of lectures, and why I talk about shared sessions. I'm sort of hoping for the first lecture we're having today is sort of this introductory to course, and I'm not really talking about programming concepts today. And the reason for that is that I want you to do the first steps yourselves. Again, this is related to what I said before about the fact that you learn to program by writing programs. And that's why you start by writing those simple programs. And then the main part of your work is done in MOOC.fi. But for these upcoming lectures next week, I'm going to of course talk about programming and programming concepts, and I'm going to show you a lot of examples. And then I'm hoping that because you have the chat open all the time, that you ask questions and provide comments and all things when we're doing this. So let's try to make the sessions as interactive as possible. So it's just not me talking, but well, it's probably just me talking, but you commenting and asking questions, and so I can show you. Let's try to make these as useful to you as possible. You don't learn to program by just listening someone talking about programming, but it can help you in learning to program. Also, because we are recording these lectures, you can use them later, and you can just listen to specific parts or whatever if you're having any problems with the exercises. And then there's finally an exam at the end of the course. And now learning to program requires a lot of work. And how much work it requires, it really depends on actually on a lot of things. Some of you will learn it faster. Some of you will require a bit more work. I promise that all of you will learn it. It may seem difficult at first, but all of you will learn it. I'd say that reserve something like 10 to 20 hours per week for these exercises. The first weeks are probably a bit easier, but as I said, this is really subjective. Some of you require more work, and some of you can do it with less work. Don't be frustrated or something like that if it seems really difficult at first, and if it seems that you will need a lot of time. It will get easier eventually, I promise you that, but it may seem difficult at first. And now all the course material is found in here, and actually this is the only thing I hope that you write down from this lecture. I mean, yeah, you can write down anything you want, but this is one thing you need to write down. So this address, programming-24.mooc.fi, this is all we have. We don't have any Moodle page or anything like that. Everything needed is here, and it looks like this. So this is the starting page. Here are all the information you may need. Here's the link for our Discord server. There's also all support and assistant and so on. The recordings will be served in here. These are last year's recordings. I will upload this year's lectures here, and I try to do it after the lecture on the same day. So Thursday's lecture should be here by Friday morning. Yeah, thank you for providing the link. So the link is now in chat window. You can just click it over there. There's information about grading and exams, list of all exercises. There's the upcoming exam, the next exam always listed. The next one is already this Saturday. It's not meant for you yet, but there are exams frequently. There's a separate section for support and assistance. There are frequently asked questions which you should take a look. List of common error messages, and then the most important stuff is of course this Axel content divided into 7 parts for this introduction course, and then there are additional 7 parts for advanced course in programming. And if we take a look at this one, there are 5 different subsections for this first part, and you should start with the first one, getting started. And the idea is that there is a description of all the stuff. There are a lot of code examples, and then there are these exercises. Okay, there's something going on at the moment. See if I have a lot of these windows in here. Okay, and these exercises are like the ones you need to complete. There are the number of exercises per week varies a little bit. It's usually something around 25 and 40, I think. In the first parts, there are a bit more exercise because the exercises are more simple, and then when we get further in the course, the exercises get more difficult or more complicated, and then they are longer, take a longer time to write, so there are less exercises. And the idea for the first 3 weeks is that you don't need anything else than your browser and the internet connection. So you just go to programming-24.mooc.fi, and then you can start writing the exercises. You can write code in this screen here. And the idea is that everything you need to know about writing code is always written before this exercise in here. And when you're done writing your solution, you can test it by clicking the run button. It displays the output of your program. And when you're happy with the result, you can click the test button, which submits the exercise to our server. And then it will provide the solution. There's something with my internet. Okay, now I get the exercise completed. Congratulations, and now I get the point for this one. And after you complete it, you can't lose the point. So you can try different solutions. It doesn't really matter. You can test your program as many times as you need to. So if you don't get the point, you can retry it, and then you can test it again. And that's because that's how programming works. Even if you're a professional programmer, the really usual cycle in programming is that you write a program, you test it, you fix the errors, you test it again, and you keep on doing that until you're sort of certain that your program does what it's supposed to do. Now there were some questions. How do we submit our exercises? Well, by clicking the test button. Do we need IDE for exam? Yes, at week 4, you're going to install a separate IDE or a separate code editor called Visual Studio Code, which we're going to use from afterwards. So for the first 3 weeks, you don't need anything else but your browser, and then at week 4, you're going to need an external editor. I will talk about that on week 4, and also if you're having problems in installing Python, which was also a question. If you don't know how to do it, there are detailed instructions. But if you have any problems with that one, you can take your laptop and come to one of our workshops, and then one of the instructors will help you with that one. Yeah. Okay. No, the instructions for the exam on upcoming exam this Saturday don't apply for the initial exam. So if you're doing the initial exam, send me an email. You get the exam tomorrow at 12. You get the initial exam by email, and you get the instructions on completing it. So basically, you're doing the initial exam with your own computer, and then you send me the answers by email. It's a sort of a simple system. We use something a bit more complicated, a bit more sophisticated with the actual exams, but the initial exam is a special case, and it's usually quite small one. So and yes, there is There is an initial exam for the advanced programming course as well, but that will happen at the beginning of that course in 8 weeks. Good question. If we work on a weekly basis, do you recommend doing the parts and exercise before these joint sessions, or is it fine to come to the joint session before we try that week's material? I'd say that I think I have a slide about that, but yeah, I sort of recommend that you try to complete as many exercises each week before next week's session. You can keep on working after that one. I'll talk about the deadlines in a minute, but uh, I sort of recommend that you try to complete the exercise in a week, because then you get another set of exercises, and then the course ends at some point, and then the advanced course starts, and if you keep postponing the exercise, then you're quickly at the you have like several weeks of exercises. Uh, yeah, I can enable the live transcription if that helps. Okay, yeah. And then about workshops. Now you need to complete the exercises independently. Uh, that doesn't mean that you need to complete them alone. And this may seem like a contradiction, but it isn't. It means that it's perfectly fine to work in a small group, as long as it means that everyone in a group is involved in completing the exercises. It's not okay that someone does the exercises and then you copy the answers from them, because, well, then you're obviously not learning the stuff. Uh, if you're having problems with the exercises, and it's really likely that at some point you are, there are a couple of these main help channels we have. First one is the workshops, and second one is a Discord server. The idea of the workshops is that the schedules are listed in the material page, the one I just showed you, uh, and they are held in Kumpula campus in Exactum building, there on the basement. And there are some instructors there all the time during the workshop time, and you can go there, just bring your laptop, and you can ask about any of the exercises and they will help you. Also, even if you don't have any problems, you can just bring your laptop over there and work on the exercises over there. So it's convenient that if you're having a problem, you can ask it straight away. You can also go there and work with other students who are doing their up, going to be students working on the same exercises in there. Uh, there are some Finnish students doing the Finnish version of the course, probably working there at the same time. They have the same exercises, they are just in Finnish, so it's also possible to work with them. Uh, and then on other times, or actually basically any time, you can also use our Discord server. There's the link and information in MOOC, but basically the idea is that you can ask questions. There are dedicated channels for Finnish and English versions of the course, and then there are people who can help you. Also, if you're in Discord, if you're using the Discord server, and if someone is asking the question where you can help, it's really great if you can help someone. Please don't provide any like ready finished answers, but just provide some help so that whoever is stuck in some problem, they can get past that and then continue working. And now there's a small bonus that when you attend the workshop live for the first time, you get 1 bonus point for the course. So 1 bonus point similar to solving one of the exercises. I understand that not all of you are physically in Helsinki, so it might be more difficult to you. But then again, you can get the perfect grade from this course without that bonus point. But if you're in Helsinki and if you can attend the workshops, they are highly recommended, and that's why we want to provide you one of these bonus points. The schedule for workshops are in material. Well, I can actually show them to you. So if you go to getting started, there's the support and assistance, and here's the list of all the workshops, and they are held in Exactum floor BK107. It's in the uh, first or second, under the first floor, whatever you call it, like underground in Exactum building. It's really easy to find, and if you ask anyone in there, they will tell you where it is. Uh, and these are the times when there are instructions there. There are also listings for Discord, uh, or assistant slots for Discord listed here. Of course, you can ask something in Discord anytime, but these are the specific times that there will be instructors there. And these are also the times that if you don't want to post your question in the public channel, you can post it directly to the instructor as a private message. Please don't send any private messages to instructors outside these times, because all of our instructors are older students and they have their own courses and things like that. You can send me messages anytime, of course. That's perfectly fine. You can find me in a Discord as well under my name, Erkki Kaila. So to sort of summarize this, it's really important that when you encounter any problems that you seek for assistance as quickly as possible. So go to Discord, go to workshops, go somewhere. Uh, as I said before, at some point there will be exercises you probably can't do on your own, and that's sort of part of the deal. That's how it's supposed to go. Uh, and at that point, when you get some assistance, then you can probably get past the whatever problem you have, and then you can continue working and so on. So please don't give up and just move to the next one before you ask someone for assistance. And don't think that you're the only person having problems with this one. As I said before, most of you will at some point think that the programming seems difficult and you need some assistance. And that's why we have a bunch of instructors who are there just to help you with these potential problems. And related to that one, something I mentioned before, is programming difficult? Yeah, for most of you, it may appear to be difficult at first. And the reason for that one is that it's so different to other skills. I mean, programming is not mathematics. Mathematics is important in some areas of programming. For example, if you want to do something related to machine learning or artificial intelligence, then you need to know some math. If you want to do some 3D graphics or things like that, then maths are also important. Then again, in some areas of programming, math is not that important. You can do some game programming, for example, without using almost any math, or you can do some text processing or stuff like that without using too much mathematics and things like that. In this course, we expect that you know like the basic sort of elementary school math. I mean, you need to know basic calculations, and you need to know what it means, like what is like a power or square root or something like that, but nothing more complicated than that. But programming is not mathematics. It's not logic either. Uh, it has some elements from both of those, but it's also a bit like problem solving and things that there are a lot of different things connected to it, and that is the reason why it may seem like a difficult thing to master at first. But I promise you that when you keep on working, you will understand it eventually. Uh, there's a lot of research done on learning or programming learning or programming pedagogy. I've done a bunch myself as well. And although there are some different sort of like theories and different aspects to that one thing that all researchers agree is the importance of active learning. So again, I'm repeating myself. You learn to program by writing programs. You learn to program by programming. And that's why you start your programming careers by writing your first programs yourself in the MOOC, and then we'll keep on working on that one. And the TMC is the system we're using in MOOC. There are some programming tasks and some quizzes. So at the end of each section, again, I can maybe show this to you. So if you take part one, and if we take any of these parts at the end of the section, there's this simple. Okay, there's for some reason they are may not be active. Well, there are some quizzes anyway listed here. For example, this background information, and see if they have the quizzes. Okay, we might have some problem with the section quizzes, but there should be a quiz at the end of each part about feedback. This is also something really important. So you get 1 point for answering this at each week, and the thing is that it asks you to tell what things did you learn, what things remain unclear. how difficult you find the exercises, how much time you spend completing them, and which grade would you give. I think this takes like 1 minute to answer. It's really good thing if you ask for this one, because this gives me and the other people working on this course a lot of important feedback on whether we need to do some modifications for this. And we've done a bunch of modifications based on the feedback. Because sometimes it's difficult to know whether a section is too difficult or too easy or something like that, or whether there are exercises that might be too difficult or something like that. And that's what we use this feedback data for. Okay. All of your exercises are automatically assessed, as I showed you before. So you can try any exercise as many times as possible. And first 3 weeks you do in browser only, then you install Visual Studio Code, which is it's actually quite good editor, and it's an editor used in industry as well. So it's not just something we use for learning; it's an actual editor used by professional programmers, and that's why we use the same one. It's really flexible, and you can basically use it to write anything, any program code or anything else as well. But it's a really sort of easy to use and handy editor. Uh, so what you need to do after this session as quickly as possible, you go to programming-24 at .mooc.fi. The link is somewhere in the chat as well. If you're a student in University of Helsinki, preferably use your Helsinki University email when you register. If you did register by using another email, it's not I mean, it's not a huge problem, but it's great if you're using your University of Helsinki address. And remember to add your student number in the details. The registration is really simple. You provide your email, a password, and your name, I think, and that's all. Then you can start working. So it's made as simple as possible. Nothing too complicated. And something that was sort of covered before, but there are no weekly deadlines. Uh, the only deadline is that all material closes at the end of this year or end of 2024, meaning that you need to have your course completed uh, before New Year, basically. Uh, and I sort of recommend, as I said before, that you try to complete each week's material before you start about before the next week, because if you don't, then they pile up, and then you have a lot a lot of stuff done before a lot of stuff you need to do before the exam or at the end of the year or something like that. So trying to complete one part per week is a good sort of speed. There was a question that someone completed some of the parts already somewhere. Is it possible to add the student number and say, yes, you can change the email in the settings. So if you go into mooc.fi, and if you're take your personal settings, then I think you can change your email. So you can change it to use to helsinki.fi email. You can also, yeah, I think that's sort of preferable at this point. So if possible, just change it to Helsinki email. I mean, you can still keep on using the old one if you want to, but it makes my life a little bit easier if you're using the Helsinki email. It makes registering your grades and stuff like that a little bit easier for me. Uh, about requirements, you need to get at least 25% of points from each round or each part, and this is built in the system so that the next part opens when you get 25% from one part. So when you complete at least 25% of points from part one, then part two opens in the MOOC. So you can't access part two exercises before you completed 25% of part one. And you can see this if when you open the material page that you only have part one highlighted and part eight, because that's the first part of advanced course. But basically, when you complete 25% of part one, then part two opens. Uh, I recommend that you try to complete as many exercises from each part as possible, and especially for the first part, try to complete 100% of all the exercises, so all the exercises before moving on. If you're missing some, it's not a disaster, but try to complete them all. Uh, the minimum requirements for passing the course is that you need to get that 25% of all points from each round, and you need to get 50% of exam score. The task will get more difficult during the course, so for that reason as well, it's a good idea to try to complete as many tasks in the first rounds as possible. And again, the tasks do get more difficult, but you also will learn new things. So programming is also it's also a skill that builds really heavily on your earlier knowledge. So you need to know the stuff from parts 1 and 2 to understand the stuff in part 3. And the things we start learning in the first week, if you think about concepts like output and input and variables and so on, that's all the stuff that's used in very complex programs as well. So variables are used in all programs, like in very complex professional program. So you start learning the stuff that's usable in the more complex programs as well. Uh, yeah. Someone asked where can I find my student number? Just log into Sisu. You should see your student number over there. If you're from the Open University, then you don't need your student number at this point, and you probably don't even have one. In grading, this is actually quite simple. So you get half of your grade from MOOC points or exercise points, and half of your grade from exam score, and then those are combined. And then I check how much you got in total. If your total points are 90 or more, your grade is 5. If your total points are less than 50, you will fail the course, and then you see the rest of the grades in here. So half of your points comes from those exercise points you're collecting starting from today. And for that reason also, it's a good idea to try to collect as much as possible. If you get minimum amount of exercise points, like 25% from each round, uh, and even if you get the maximum score from exam, your grade will still be only 3. So to get the best possible grade, you need to complete uh, quite a lot of those exercise points. But there's a catch in there that if you actually do all or almost all of the exercises, then the exam will be really easy. I promise you that if you complete almost all of the exercises during the course, then the exam will be there's nothing difficult on the final exam. Um, and about exams, there will be at least 3 exams. There might be more, but at least 3 are promised. The dates are announced in the material. They are actually there already. Uh, you do the exam electronically with your own computer, and basically the idea is that on the exam day, the exam is open between 10 in the morning and then in the evening. You can do the exam whenever you want to. You have 3 hours, and when you start doing the exam, the time starts running, meaning that you need to spend the 3 hours over there. You can attend as many exams as you like. Your best grade is the one that counts, meaning that if you get grade 4 from the first exam and then you come to second exam and get grade 3, then the 4 is still the exam resistant in Sisu. Uh, but you can also always improve your grade if you want to. So if you're not happy with your grade with the first exam, you can come to another exam and then do it again. Uh, Actually, about this one, because the exam, question. So yeah, you can complete this course within this year. So it doesn't need to happen during this period. I sort of recommend that you try to do it in this period because the advanced course is going to start in the next period, and most of you have other courses to attend as well. But yeah, you have until the end of the year to complete this course. There are exams coming until the end of the year as well. Now, a little bit about the use of artificial intelligence, and as I said before, most of you are probably familiar with the tools using stuff like ChatGPT or whatever. Uh, and you can use the large language models or AI tools for some purposes, and these are also listed in course page. But you can use the AR for information retrieval or explaining and summarizing topics. So if you didn't understand something, you read the material and you didn't understand how the conditional expressions work or something like that, you can ask AI tool that can you please tell me how the if statement works in Python or something like that. And it's also permitted for identifying or explaining errors in the code you produced yourself. So if you write some code, it doesn't work, and you get an error, you can ask AI tool something like, why does this code produce this kind of error? It's possible that you can also ask these kind of questions from our instructors in workshops and Discord, but sometimes this is useful. Oh, there's a question about why are all the exam dates on a Saturday? The exam dates are on a Saturday because we share the exams with Open University and with all the MOOC. The MOOC is done by a lot of other students than university students as well, and Saturday has it's based on our experience. Saturday is the most convenient day for anyone. I know it's not the perfect day. I know some of you may be, for example, working on Saturdays, but it should be suitable for most of you. If there are a bunch of you who find it unsuitable, then we can try to organize at least one exam on some other day, but basically the exams are on Saturdays. Also question, what AI programs do you recommend for the top 2 quizzes? I'm basically using ChatGPT myself for most of these things. I think Google Gemini will probably do a good work. Well, did it change its name again? For any of these, if you're using Microsoft Copilot, it can definitely perform these tasks as well, and whatever you use to. But I'd say ChatGPT is the one I've been using mostly. And the use of AI, you can't use for anything. You can't use it to generate program code, meaning that it's forbidden to ask any AI to that here is a task. Can you please give me an answer? That's considered cheating. And you can't use the AI tool at all during the exam. A couple of words about cheating. I'm hoping and thinking that all of you are in this course because you want to learn the stuff, and that's why you are in here. And learn the stuff. Of course, you need to do these exercises by yourself. Again, working in small groups, there's nothing wrong with that one, but meaning that you can't copy them from anyone else, including the AI tools. We use some methods to detect cheating. Especially in the exams. If you are caught, then there are some university procedures which will happen after that one, and basically means that at least your exam is failed, and there might be other consequences as well. But please don't do anything stupid like that. But as I said, I'm sure that you are all here to learn this stuff because this is important. So I said the programming is still an important skill, even with the AI tools. The question, there are only 3 exam dates available for the introduction to programming. There will be at least those 3 dates. There might be one more date at the beginning of next year, but let's see. It sort of depends on if there are people who need to take the exam then. So I'm not promising there will be more. There will be at least those 3, but there might be like one more. I don't count on that yet. Then we usually provide, so as I said, we collect a lot of feedback from these courses each week, and at the end of the course there's a separate course feedback, and I think it's a good idea too, and it's sort of customary that we show them feedback from previous year's course. In this one, we did get a feedback stating that there are a lot of exercises to complete, there's a lot of work to complete. That's as I said, that's not an accident. The whole idea of learning to program is that you write those a lot of programs, and that's why there are a lot of exercises. And then, sort of, well, not surprisingly, but there were a lot of feedback stating that the course exam was really easy, and it was something I said before. If you complete enough of those exercises, then the course exam will be really easy. Then there was a question that why do we need to use Visual Studio Code? Why we can't just use the browser to write the exercises? And the reason for this one is that I want you to learn some real life tools or tools actually used outside of those browser, outside of this course. And why is that? Is that I think the programming is actually a useful skill which you can actually use to solve a lot of different kind of issues and problems related to materials and a lot of stuff. Uh, and for that reason, you need to have tools you can actually use to write programs outside this course. And that's why we use Visual Studio Code as an you can write you can I mean, there are a lot of other editors as well. We are using Visual Studio Code because we have a plugin for that one, which connects it to the material, to the MOOC. Uh, uh, and it's sort of lightweight and it's free. You can download it and it's available for all these different operating systems. So we're using that one. There are other quite decent editors if you want to use something else after this course. So nothing wrong with that one. Uh, and uh, and another question I got from last year's feedback, it was there quite frequent, is that why is the deadline of exercises at the exam day? And what this means is that you get your grade based on the exercise points and the exam score. And now your exercise score is recorded on the date of on the morning of the exam date. Meaning that if you would take the exam this Saturday, uh, I will download your exam score this Saturday morning at 8 o'clock or before 10 anyway. And then I think it actually says 8 o'clock. And then that is the score that's used to calculate your grade, that score and your exam score. If you want to collect more points after that exam, then you need to retake the exam as well. So you can't just do more exercises after the exam to get the better grade. And the reason is, of course, that it would be impossible for me to check that whether someone has collected more points bit after the exam. So uh, this means that if you want to do more exercises after the exam, that's perfectly possible. You can do that, but then you need to take the exam again as well. Okay, that may not make any sense at this point, but at some point it will. And I think this is pretty much what I have to say about this one. So what I want you to do after this exam, it's only 11:15. You have like 30 minutes reserved for this exam, this lecture. So you probably have time to go to programming-24.mooc.fi, register, and try to complete the first couple of exercises. The first ones are really easy. They are supposed to be really easy to sort of get you accustomed to how the system works and how you can get points and so on, and then keep on working on that material whenever you have time. If you encounter any problems, come to one of our workshops or go to Discord server, ask your questions. You will see that there are a lot of friendly people in both of those who will help you with whatever questions you might have. And then you can always contact me uh, by email or in Discord if you have any questions. And if you have any questions now, then now is a good time to ask them. You have 2 hours to complete the initial exam tomorrow. Also, as a reminder, if you want to take the initial exam, I can show you where is the slide again? Over here. Send me an email and actually send it now. I need to have the exam or the email by tomorrow morning, but the best bet, if you're going to take the exam, send it immediately now. Just log into your email, and if it's not open already, and send me an email. Just say that I want to take the initial exam. That's all I need. Yes. I think I'm going to stop the recording now.